A pattern piece inventory can be found on page 24 of your instruction manual. Let's work on the back jeans assembly. With right sides together, place back yokes, which is pattern piece 20, on top of lower back jeans pieces, which are pattern pieces 7, 9, or 11. Pin in place. Stitch at 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, using your all-purpose thread. Finish seams with an overlocking or zigzag stitch, then press seams down towards lower back jeans pieces. This will be pattern pieces 7, 9, or 11. Sewing 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters from the seam, edge stitch a line of stitching using your top stitching thread. Sew another line of stitching, 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, from your first line of stitching. With right sides together, pin center back edges of jeans together. Stitch at 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, using your all-purpose thread. Finish seam with overlocking stitch or zigzag stitch. With right sides up, press seam allowance towards the left of the jeans. Sewing 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters from the seam, edge stitch a line of stitching using your top stitching thread. Sew another line of stitching 1/4 of an inch, which is 6 millimeters, from your first line of stitching. Let's work on the classic back pockets now. Press top edge of the pocket down by 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. Then press that fold down again by another 3/8 of an inch, which is also 1 centimeter. Using your top stitching thread, edge stitch 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, from the top of your pocket fold. Stitch a second line of top stitching 1/4 of an inch, which is 6 millimeters below. Press bottom and sides of pockets 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, from the raw edge. Place and pin pockets on your jeans using the pocket placement markings. Starting 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, from the pocket corner, edge stitch around the sides and bottom of the pocket, pivoting at the corners. When you reach the top outer corner, stitch 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters across, then pivot and sew parallel to the edge stitching 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters away. Finish by pivoting and sewing over the 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, section of stitching at the top corner of your pocket. Bar tack top corners. I use a zigzag stitch with a 0.5 length and a 1.5 width. Let's work on the heart pockets now. Finish the bottom edge of pattern piece 19 with an overlocking stitch or zigzag stitch. Then place pattern piece 19 on top of pattern piece 18, right sides together. Using your all-purpose thread and 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeter seam allowance, stitch all the way around your heart pockets, pivoting at the corners and back stitching at the end. Trim the top of the heart pocket and heart pocket facing down to 1/8 of an inch, which is 3 millimeters. Snip into the center V of the heart, making sure not to cut into your stitching. Turn pockets right side out. Use the 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeter stitch line, as a guide to press a fold around the perimeter of your pockets. To figure out where your top stitching will stop and start, place your paper pattern piece 18, on top of your fabric pocket. Transfer the notches with a marking tool. Using top stitching thread, start stitching 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, below the first notch. After you've sewn upwards 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, to reach the notch, edge stitch 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, from the top of the pocket, pivoting at the center V. Continue edge stitching until you reach the next notch, then stitch down 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters. Pivot at the corner, then sew a second line of stitching parallel to the edge stitching, which is 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters away. Finish by stitching the notch you started at. Place and pin pockets on jeans using the pocket placement markings. Start stitching 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, below the second notch. After you've sewn up 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, to reach the notch, edge stitch 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, from the edge of the pocket, pivoting at the center V. Continue edge stitching until you reach the next notch, then stitch down 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters. Pivot at the corner, then sew a second line of stitching parallel to the edge stitching, 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters away. Finish by stitching up the notch you started at. Bar tack the pocket openings. I use a zigzag stitch with a 0.5 length and a 1.5 width. Let's work on the fly shield now. Finish side edges with an overlocking stitch or zigzag stitch. Fold shield in half, right sides together. So bottom of fly shield with 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeter, seam allowance. Cut bottom shield seam allowance down to 1/8 of an inch, which is 3 millimeters. Flip shield, right side out, and press. Snip 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, into the notched left front. Please note that this is the left front while you're looking down at it flat, and the right front when you're wearing it. Finish left front edges with a zigzag or overlocking stitch. With wrong sides up, fold back and press 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, of the left front tab, then set aside. Let's work on the front fly now. Interface front fly, glue side to wrong side of fly. Finish edges with an overlocking or zigzag stitch. Right sides together, lay front fly on top of jeans right front. Please note that this is the right front while you're looking down at it flat and the left front while you're wearing it. Pin in place. Sew fly to jeans front with a 1/2 inch, which is 1.3 centimeter seam allowance. We will next be grading the seams to reduce bulk. Including both layers, cut the protruding tab off the front of the jeans and fly. Cut the seam allowance of just the fly piece in half. Finish raw edge. Press fly and seam allowance away from jeans. Fold and press fly inwards towards jeans. Pin zipper face down 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, from the center front edge. Align the bottom left corner with the edge of your fly. The top of your zipper will likely extend above your jeans. We will trim it down to size at a later step. Using all-purpose thread, edge stitch the left side of the zipper. Sew a parallel line of stitches, 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, from the first line of stitching. It may help to use the zipper foot on the second line of stitching. Pin up the bottom of the zipper tape closest to the center front. This prevents it from getting caught in your stitching and makes the next steps of the fly assembly easier. Using all-purpose thread and a basting stitch, sew the fly down 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, from the edge of the fly. Flip your jeans right side up. Using your top stitching thread, sew 1/8 of an inch, which is 3 millimeters, away from the basted fly. You will start at the top right of your basting stitch and sew all the way down around the curve, pivoting 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, from the center front. Sew up 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, then pivot, sewing a parallel line of stitching 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, away from your initial line of stitching. Remove your basting stitches. Unpin bottom of zipper. Pushing your zipper out of the way, use your top stitching thread to edge stitch the center front of the fly area. Please note that you do not want to catch your zipper in your top stitching. Place your fly shield behind your zipper, aligning the edge of the zipper with the edge of your fly shield. You'll want the bottom of your fly shield to be level with your fly piece. Stitch in place with your all-purpose thread. Aligning the jeans panel with your fly shield, place the folded edge of your left jeans panel 1/8 of an inch, which is 3 millimeters, away from the edge of your zipper teeth. Pin in place. Using your top stitching thread, sew a line of stitching 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, from the left center front of your fly area. This will secure your jeans piece to the fly shield and zipper. Pin and sew the front crotch with 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, seam allowance. Since we will be top stitching this area in a future step, there is no need for you to sew all the way up to the fly. Just go as high as you comfortably can. Flip jeans right side up. Press seam allowance to the right. Starting at the bottom of your crotch curve, sew 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, from the seam with your top stitching thread. Pivot 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, above the fly curve. Sew 1/4 of an inch, which is 6 millimeters. Then pivot and sew a line of stitching parallel to the initial line of stitching. The second line of stitching will be 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, from the first. Use the illustration as a guide for your bar tacks. Each bar tack should be 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters long. To create bar tacks, I use all-purpose thread and a zigzag stitch with a 0.5 length and a 1.5 width. Let's work on the front pockets now. Fold front pocket, pattern piece 12, in half, right sides together. Repeat on other pocket. With right side facing down, press top edge of the coin pocket, pattern piece 16, down by 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. Then press that fold down again by another 3/8 inch, also 1 centimeter. Using your top stitching thread, edge stitch 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, from the top of your pocket fold. Stitch a second line of top stitching 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, below. With right sides facing down, press side edges of the coin pocket inwards by 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. Use markings as a guide to pin your coin pocket to your pocket facing. Starting at the bottom corner of your coin pocket, edge stitch, working your way up to 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, from the top of the coin pocket. When you reach the top outer corner, stitch 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, across. Then pivot and sew parallel to the edge stitching 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, away. Repeat on the other side of coin pocket. Finish both curved edges. Pin the pocket facing, which is pattern piece 13, to the pocket bag. Using your all-purpose thread, baste the top and sides of the pocket facing. Edge stitched around the curved edge. Repeat all steps on the other side. Still using your all-purpose thread, bar tack the top corners of your coin pocket. Each bar tack should be 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters long. To create bar tacks, I use a zigzag stitch with a 0.5 length and a 1.5 width. Using your all-purpose thread and a 3/8 inch, which is 1 centimeter seam allowance, right sides together, sew your pocket curve to your jeans pocket curve. Press seam allowance towards the pocket. Press pocket bag towards the wrong side of jeans. Using top stitching thread, edge stitch the pocket curves. Sew another line of stitching 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, from your first line of stitching. With wrong sides together, pin the bottom of the pocket bag together. Using all-purpose thread, stitch with a 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, seam allowance. Trim away 1/8 of an inch, which is 3 millimeters, from the bottom of the pocket bag. Turn your pocket bag wrong side out, then press the bottom seam. Stitch a 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, from the bottom of the pocket bag, creating a French seam. Repeat all steps on other pocket bag. Baste pocket top and sides to jeans. Right sides together, align your front and back inseams. It helps to have the front jeans panel on the top to help ease in the slightly larger back panel. If you're making the jeans version, align and pin your front and back hems as well as knee notches. Sew with all-purpose thread and a 3/8 inch, which is 1 centimeter, seam allowance. Then finish your inseam with an overlocking stitch or zigzag stitch. Press your seam allowance towards the front of your jeans. Switch to top stitching thread. Starting at the hem, edge stitch all the way up through the crotch seam and down to the adjacent hem. Sew parallel to the edge stitching a 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters away. Before we start working on the side seams, let's prep your hems. I've found that prepping hems while the fabric is still flat is a lot easier than trying to do it in the round. With right side facing down, press bottom edge of jeans up by 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. Press fold up again by another 3/8 of an inch, which is also 1 centimeter. Unfold hems. Please note that the actual sewing of these hems will happen at a later step. Pin front and back of jeans right sides together. Sew side seams with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. Finish seams. Press seam allowance towards back of jeans. Using your top stitching thread, edge stitch side seams from top of jeans to bottom of pocket bag. Bar tack the bottom of your edge stitching. Each bar tack should be a 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters long. To create bar tacks, I use a zigzag stitch with a 0.5 length and a 1.5 width. Unzip your zipper, then snip the excess zipper off the top of your jeans. If you own pliers, you may want to pull the top 4 teeth off your metal zipper. A plastic zipper will not need any teeth removed. Let's make some belt loops now. Overlock one long edge of the belt loop strip. Press belt loop strip by folding it into thirds lengthwise. With your top stitching thread, edge stitch 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, on both sides of the belt loop strip. Cut the belt loop into 5 3 3/8 inch, which is 8.6 centimeter belt loops. Using the belt loop markings as a guide, pin your belt loops to your jeans. At this stage, the serge side of the belt loop should be facing up. Stitch belt loops 3/4 of an inch, which is 1.9 centimeters, down from the waistline. You may also want to tack the belt loops a 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, from the waistline to hold them in place. Let's move on to making the waistband. If you wear sizes I through X, you're going to need to join your 2 waistband pieces together. Please note that sizes C through H only have 1 waistband piece. With right sides together, align centers of both waistband pieces. With all-purpose thread, sew at 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. Press seam allowance open. This part of the waistband applies to all sizes. Press waistband in half the long way, wrong sides together. Unfold. Press unnotched edge down 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, wrong sides together. You will have 4 interfacing pieces, 2 of pattern piece 4 and 2 of pattern piece 5. Pattern piece 4 will be placed on top of each other, as will the pattern pieces 5 respectively. You will be adhering these pattern pieces to the unnotched side of the waistband. This avoids any fabric puckering on the outside waistband fabric if your interfacing doesn't adhere perfectly. When looking at the waistband, wrong side up, notches down, the longer interfacing pieces, which is pattern piece 5, should be adhered to the far left side, and the shorter interfacing pieces, pattern piece 4, should be adhered to the far right side. Align interfacing strips flush against the center fold line and position them 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, from the corner edge. Pin waistband to jeans, carefully aligning notches and seams. The waistband should protrude beyond the jeans by 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. Pin all the way around the waistband. Using all-purpose thread, stitch the waistband to the top of your jeans at 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. If you have not yet removed the top 4 teeth off your metal zipper, I recommend hand cranking over the fly area to avoid breaking a needle. To reduce bulk while maintaining waistband strength, trim down the waistband seam allowance only. Do not trim the seam allowance of the jeans layer beneath. Press seam allowance towards waistband, then press both center front waistband tabs in by 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. Refold the waistband in half along the original fold line. If you would like to add a fun tag to your jeans, now is a great time to do that. Pin your waistband in place. Starting in line with the front belt loop, edge stitch the waistband all the way around to the other front belt loop using your top stitching thread. Do this on both the top and bottom of your waistband. On the right side of your waistband, using your all-purpose thread, add a buttonhole starting a 1/2 inch, which is 1.3 centimeters, away from the center front. To determine the length of your waistband elastic, we're going to do some math. Step number 1, subtract 2 inches, which is 5.1 centimeters, from your waist measurement. Step number 2, determine your unelasticated waist measurement, which is on page 8 of your instructions. Subtract the number from step number 1. Step number 3, measure the area between one front belt loop all the way around to the other front belt loop. Subtract the final number in step 2 from the number in step 3. This is the length of your elastic. Here is an example using my measurements. Using a bodkin or safety pin, feed your elastic through the opening of the waistband channel, making sure it doesn't get twisted along the way. The elastic should extend 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, beyond the front of the belt loops. With your all-purpose thread, tack the elastic down by sewing a vertical line of stitching in the waistband, directly above the center of both front belt loops. Using your top stitching thread and stretching your elastic as you go, sew a line of stitching from one front belt loop all the way around to the other front belt loop. This line of stitching should be 7/8 of an inch, which is 2.2 centimeters, below the top of the waistband. Edge stitch around the unstitched part of the front waistband. Fold and press raw edge of belt loop under by 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters. Pin in place. Using your all-purpose thread, bar tack 1/16 of an inch, which is 2 millimeters, from the top and bottom of the belt loops. To bar tack, I use a zigzag stitch with a 0.5 length and a 1.5 width. When bar tacking the center back belt loop, if you've added a fun label, make sure to pin it out of the way so you don't accidentally bar tack it too. Determine the placement of the button by zipping the zipper all the way up and overlapping the front as it will sit when worn. Using an awl, poke a hole directly inside the left edge of the buttonhole. Refold your hem along the previous creases. Starting at the inner seam, hem your jeans using 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, seam allowance. Congratulations, your jeans are complete.